Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're exploring something really fundamental and honestly rapidly evolving: endpoint security.
It's everywhere, isn't it?
Exactly. Our lives, our work, it's all so interconnected now, buzzing with amazing innovation. We've got powerful AI tools changing how we work, new ways to connect globally. It's incredible.
But there's always a catch.
There is. With all this progress comes a pretty significant challenge: threats. Increasingly sophisticated threats targeting the very devices, our laptops, our phones, and the data we rely on every single day.
The endpoints, right at the front line.
Precisely. So our mission today is to really unpack this complex, dynamic landscape. We want to look at the cyber attacks hitting our devices, our sensitive info, and crucially, equip you with the core principles for building truly robust digital defenses.
We need them.
We absolutely do. We're going to dive into the latest developments, the cutting-edge tools attackers are now using, and importantly, how organizations are fighting back. Now, before we really plunge into the details, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Stonefly.
Great folks over there.
They really are. A true leader in enterprise storage, backup, and disaster recovery. They specialize in advanced AI storage and cloud solutions.
Which is becoming so critical now.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for secure, ransomware-proof storage, and who isn't these days, Stonefly offers air-gapped and immutable storage options.
Can you unpack air-gapped quickly?
Yeah.
It's a key concept.
Good point. Think of air-gapped as physically isolated. It's storage that isn't connected to your main network. So if ransomware hits your network, it just can't reach that air-gapped backup. It's a vital layer of defense.
Like a vault for your data.
Exactly like a vault. So you can reach out to them directly at sales@stonefly.com to schedule a demo, see how they can help protect your critical data. Okay, so let's unpack this threat landscape. It's not just changing. It feels like it's evolving at an incredible, almost dizzying pace.
It really does.
When we look at the latest intelligence, what's it telling us about the sheer volume, the complexity of cyber attacks we're seeing today? Because the numbers I've seen are, frankly, quite alarming.
Yeah, alarming is the right word. And what's fascinating, or maybe concerning, is how these numbers really connect to the bigger picture of our digital lives, right?
Yeah.
It's not just more attacks, it's smarter, more targeted ones.
Okay.
Recent research shows a staggering 30% year-over-year increase in cyber attacks globally.
30% in
Yep.
1 year.
Yep. Think about that. Nearly a third more attacks than the year before. And it's not just a steady climb either. The second quarter of 2024 actually saw the highest increase in global cyber attacks in 2 years. That's a significant jump.
Wow.
Organizations worldwide, on average, are now facing 1,636 attacks every single week.
1,636 a week. That's
Yeah,
relentless.
It is. It's a constant barrage.
And you mentioned something earlier about endpoints being the origin point. I think the stat was nearly 90% of successful cyber attacks and maybe 70% of successful data breaches. Start there.
That's right. The vast majority originated at the endpoint.
So why? Why are these devices, our laptops, our phones, the things we use every day, such consistent weak points? Is it just the sheer number of them, or is there something fundamentally different about how they're being targeted now?
Well, it's a bit of both, really. The sheer number is definitely a factor. Our endpoints, laptops, desktops, mobile devices, they're literally the front lines. They're the entry points criminals are constantly probing, constantly trying to exploit.
Makes sense.
So understanding the drivers behind this onslaught is crucial. It's fueled by several key things. One, we're seeing this continued relentless push towards digital transformation across every industry that naturally expands the attack surface, creates more doors and windows, if you like.
Or targets.
Exactly. Two, the cyber criminals themselves are getting, well, smarter. They're aggressively using advanced techniques, things like AI and machine learning, to craft their attacks. These aren't just simple smash-and-grab attempts anymore. They're increasingly tailored, deceptive.
And speaking of AI, Gen AI, generative AI, it's everywhere in the news.
Huh.
Revolutionizing work, sure, but it sounds like it's also become a huge tool for the attackers, too, like an easy button for cybercrime.
Precisely. That's a good way to put it. The proliferation of these Gen AI tools, think ChatGPT, Gemini, others,
Yeah.
it's absolutely accelerating this threat landscape. It's essentially endowing even, let's say, low-level threat actors with capabilities that were typically reserved for the biggest, most sophisticated, most dangerous cyber groups.
Right.
And that's a critical point because it democratizes sophisticated attack capabilities.
Yeah.
Suddenly, it's easier for a much wider range of criminals to launch really effective attacks. And this new reality, it profoundly challenges our traditional security models. It's a paradox, actually.
A paradox. How so?
Well, Gen AI offers significant value, right? We see stats like 79% of organizations are getting very significant benefits from using it. It boosts productivity, streamlines tasks.
Yeah.
It's a clear win for adoption.
Yeah, you can see why companies are jumping on board, but where's the other edge of that sword? What are the specific cybersecurity risks that come with everyone using Gen AI?
Oh, the risks are substantial. Despite the clear benefits, something like 92% of organizations that allow Gen AI use are actually concerned about security and potential data leakage.
That's a huge percentage.
It is. And even more startling, 55% of data leakage events are a direct result of Gen AI usage.
55%. How does that happen?
Well, it gets worse. 48% of employees admit, sometimes, maybe unknowingly, to entering non-public company information into Gen AI applications.
Like what kind of info?
Could be confidential project details, customer
Yeah.
data. Maybe they're just trying to get a quick summary drafted or an email polished. They type it in, not realizing that data could potentially be stored or used for training by the Gen AI provider. Boom, leakage vector created.
Oof. Okay.
And on top of that, you've got 69% of leaders worried that Gen AI usage could hurt their company's legal rights, their intellectual property. So this creates this really significant value versus risk paradox. Organizations want the power, but they're grappling with how to use it safely.
And the criminals know this.
They absolutely do. They're keenly aware. They're actively exploiting the vulnerabilities that pop up from, let's say, lax Gen AI practices or insufficient controls. And at the same time, they're using these same technologies to launch their own sophisticated attacks with unprecedented ease.
So it's not just that Gen AI helps them automate attacks, it actually opens up new vulnerabilities within the organizations trying to use it for good. Wow, that's a nasty feedback loop for the bad guys.
It really is.
Beyond leveraging Gen AI, what other sophisticated attack techniques are really challenging security teams these days?
Yeah, besides Gen AI, attackers are evolving in other ways too. One big trend is the weaponization of legitimate tools.
What does that mean exactly?
It means cybercriminals exploit tools that are already installed on systems. Software that's supposed to be there,
Yeah.
that's typically trusted. Think PowerShell, WMI, things like that. They use these everyday tools for malicious purposes
Why?
because it helps them evade detection. By using trusted tools, they can often bypass traditional security measures that are primarily looking for suspicious, unknown files or programs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a hacker not needing a crowbar because they can just pick up the screwdriver you left on your workbench and use that to dismantle your security.
That sounds incredibly sneaky, using your own tools against you. So how do they spread their malicious stuff then?
Precisely. Another technique involves using ghost accounts for malware distribution. This is relatively new. Threat actors create fake accounts, often designed to look like regular users, maybe on platforms like GitHub or social media. And they use these accounts to organically promote and distribute malicious links.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just blast out spam. They build up perceived legitimacy first. They interact, they join communities, maybe star repositories, gain trust slowly, and then drop the malicious payload.
They're building a fake reputation.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about this. What happens when these ghost accounts are powered by AI? Imagine future AI-powered ghost accounts launching even more targeted, more convincing campaigns, dynamically generating responses, appearing more human. It could become exceedingly difficult, even for savvy users, to tell legitimate content from malicious material.
That's a scary thought. AI fakes interacting convincingly and then slipping in a bad link.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of sophistication.
It sounds like a truly insidious evolution. Can you give us maybe a concrete example, something technical, of how these sophisticated attacks work, beyond just a bad link or a fake account?
Certainly. Let's talk about process injection. This is a highly sophisticated technique attackers use to evade detection by endpoint protection products and also to escalate their privileges once they're inside a system.
Process injection. Okay.
It involves injecting malicious code directly into legitimate running processes. Think of it like a parasite attaching itself to a healthy host cell. It could be your trusted web browser, a common system utility, even one of your operating system's core processes.
And why is that so effective?
Because once the malicious code is running inside a trusted process, it can operate undetected. The process itself looks legitimate to many security solutions. The big challenge here is that many current security products, well, they fail to adequately monitor the behavioral indicators associated with this injection process.
What do you mean by behavioral indicators?
They might check if a file itself is known to be bad, right? The signature match. but they might not notice if a normally trusted process suddenly starts acting weird, like connecting to a suspicious external server it never talks to, or trying to access sensitive system files it shouldn't need. That behavior is the clue, but it's often missed.
So the malware is hiding in plain sight inside something trusted.
Exactly. It leaves organizations exposed to threats that are already inside their digital walls, operating in stealth. And these evolving threats, both in volume and cunning, they just demand equally advanced proactive defenses.
Okay, now let's shift focus a bit. One of the most insidious tools you hear about in the cybercriminals arsenal is something called an info stealer.
Ah, yes, info stealers. Very prevalent.
What exactly are these, and why are they so uniquely potent in today's threat landscape? What makes them stand out?
Info stealers are a particularly nasty form of malicious software. They're designed specifically to breach computer systems and, just like the name suggests, steal sensitive information. We're talking login credentials, financial details like credit card numbers, personally identifiable information, PII, you name it.
The crown jewels, basically.
Pretty much. And once this data is stolen, it's typically packaged up neatly, sent off to the attacker's server, and then very often sold or traded on illicit underground markets to other cybercriminals. They're potent because they're built for stealth and efficiency in just harvesting data.
So it's not just about stealing the data, but monetizing it quickly and efficiently through these underground markets. How do they usually operate once they get onto a system? What's their typical structure?
Structurally, an info stealer usually has two main parts. There's the bot framework, that's the malicious code that actually runs on the victim's computer. It's what lets the attacker configure what the stealer does, specifying exactly what kind of information it should go after, browser passwords, crypto wallet files, system info, etc.
Okay, the worker bee.
Right. And then there's the management panel. This is typically a server interface, like a web dashboard. It's where the info stealer sends all the stolen data it collects. It also allows the attacker to control the deployed stealers, maybe update their instructions or push new commands. It's their central command and control hub.
Got it. Collection and control. And how do these things actually get onto people's devices? Is it still just the same old phishing emails, or have the distribution methods evolved too?
Well, phishing attacks, especially highly targeted spear phishing, are definitely still common methods. But info stealers have multiple ways in, and they've become increasingly sophisticated.
Such as?
They can be embedded in email attachments, obviously, or malicious links that lead to compromised websites performing drive-by downloads where malware gets downloaded just by visiting the site, often without you clicking anything specific.
Scary.
Yeah. They're also commonly bundled with compromised or malicious browser extensions, which people install thinking they add functionality. Another big one is infected game cheating packages.
Ah, targeting gamers again?
Huge problem there, preying on people looking for shortcuts. And of course, pirated or cracked software is a classic distribution vector. Once the stealer is downloaded and often tricked into running, it immediately starts talking to the attacker's command and control, or C2 servers, to send out that sensitive data.
And it doesn't stop there, right? Some can do more damage.
That's right. Some info stealers are even more dangerous because they act as a beachhead. They allow the attacker to remotely introduce and execute secondary malware, things like remote access Trojans or RATs, which give them persistent control over the machine, or even deploying ransomware to encrypt everything. So the info stealer can be just the first step towards a much bigger, more damaging attack. They're like gateway drugs for cybercrime.
Gateway drugs. That's a good analogy. So they're not just stealing info, they're potentially paving the way for total system compromise or extortion. What kind of data are they typically after? And have their capabilities changed much over time?
Well, their primary function is always data exfiltration. The exact type of data can vary a lot, depending on how the operator configures it and which specific variant of the stealer is used. But most commonly, they harvest things like host operating system information, system settings, user profiles, stored browser credentials, cookies.
Cookies? Why cookies?
Because stealing session cookies allows attackers to potentially hijack your active login sessions to websites without needing your password. It can sometimes bypass multi-factor authentication.
Nasty.
Very. And as you said, the advanced ones can drop secondary malware like RATs and ransomware. To give you some historical context, one of the first really significant info stealers was called Zeus, discovered back in 2009.
Zeus! I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah, it was quite advanced for its time. Researchers found it could automatically pull data from protected storage, grab POP3 and FTP passwords, perform web injections, meaning it could alter web pages as you view them, maybe insert fake login fields and monitor specific URLs you visited to steal credentials entered there.
Pretty sophisticated for over a decade ago. How have they advanced since then? What does a modern infostealer look like?
A great example of a more modern one is Azerolt, which was really prominent around 2020. This variant had features like a builder tool.
A builder.
Yeah, it let the operators literally custom build their version of the stealer, picking and choosing from a menu exactly what data types they wanted to target. Very flexible.
Wow.
It also included plugins specifically for stealing browsing history, a customizable mechanism using regular expressions, regex, to find and steal arbitrary files from the victim's computer based on patterns, like looking for files named passwords.txt or similar. It had modules for extracting browser passwords, Skype chat history, and critically, modules designed to find and steal cryptocurrency wallet files.
Going after the crypto makes sense.
Absolutely. That level of customization and targeting makes them incredibly efficient data thieves. Researchers studying Azerolt found the stolen data typically fell into three main categories. Fingerprints.
Fingerprints, like biometrics.
No, not physical fingerprints. These are unique identifiers constructed from various browsers and system features, screen resolution, installed fonts, browser plugins, etc. They don't necessarily tie to a specific service login, but they help attackers track your activity across the web, build a profile. Then there are cookies, which we mentioned for session hijacking, and resources, which refers to sensitive browser-related files, like the actual stored password databases. It's a comprehensive data grab designed purely to maximize illicit profit.
It sounds incredibly thorough. And this malware as a service model you mentioned, Moz, that seems to be a huge factor in why these are so widespread. Can you elaborate on the economics? How does Moz make this so prevalent and lead to more incidents?
The Moz model is an absolute game changer. It dramatically lowers both the technical skill needed and the financial cost to become a cybercriminal focused on data theft.
How does it work?
Under this model, you typically have three groups. First, the developers, the skilled coders who actually write the complex info stealer malware. Second, the malware service providers. These guys license the malware from the developers and offer it as a ready-to-go service, often handling the back-end infrastructure like the C2 servers and management panels.
Okay.
And third, you have the operators. These are the individuals or groups who actually subscribe to or buy the service and use it to carry out the attacks and steal the credentials. This means people with relatively little technical knowledge can deploy these sophisticated malicious programs.
So you don't need to be a master coder to be an effective data thief anymore.
Not at all. And the market for these hosted stealers is incredibly mature, competitive even. We've seen reports where some operators offer to set up an info stealer campaign for as low as $12.
$12? You said that earlier. It's just shocking. For a tool that can compromise potentially countless accounts?
It is shockingly accessible. It means the barrier to entry is virtually non-existent. And for the service providers running these operations, their costs are minimal too. Maybe the initial license fee from the developer, a domain name registration for the C2 server. Their main ongoing cost is just server hosting.
So low investment, potentially very high return for the criminals.
Exactly. Based on these low costs, researchers have concluded that the stealer as a service business model is extremely profitable. Many operators achieve profit margins well over 90%.
90% margin.
Yeah. With revenues often reaching into the high thousands of dollars per operator, this extreme profitability and accessibility are directly linked to the massive surge we're seeing in cybersecurity incidents involving info stealers.
And the shift to remote work probably hasn't helped.
Definitely not. The post-COVID shift to remote and hybrid work models, where employees are often accessing sensitive corporate services from personal, potentially less secure machines, that's been cited as a major reason for the increased effectiveness of these info stealers. Just more dispersed, often less protected endpoints ripe for targeting.
That makes perfect sense. Do we have any specific statistics to really back up this rising tide of info stealers and their impact?
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are quite stark and paint a clear picture. Research in 2023 found that the number of stolen data logs, that's the package of data exfiltrated from each compromised computer being sold on the Russian market, a major underground cybercrime forum.
Okay.
That number dramatically increased from around 2 million logs available in June 2022 to 5 million logs by February 2023.
Doubled and then some in less than a year.
A massive leap in a very short time. In mid-2023, info stealers represented about 24% of all malware being offered as a service, showing just how popular they are in that ecosystem.
Almost a quarter of the mass market.
All right. Now, fast forward to 2024 stats. Info stealers were reportedly responsible for stealing an astounding 2.1 billion credentials.
Billion, with a B.
Billion, representing over 60% of all credentials stolen across all types of attacks globally.
Wow. Over half of all stolen credentials come from these things.
Yep, and the average monthly cost to rent an InfoStealer service in 2024 remained quite low, around $200 per month. Still highlighting that low barrier to entry, making it a very attractive, very scalable criminal business model.
$200 a month for a tool that can potentially steal billions of credentials globally. That's a terrifying return on investment for the attackers. And it's not just hitting small targets, is it? We're seeing real-world impacts on highly sensitive organizations. I seem to recall a pretty concerning report about government agencies being hit.
That's a critical point, yes.
Yeah.
There was a significant report in February 2025 indicating that InfoStealers had successfully compromised email accounts and credentials across multiple U.S. government and military departments.
Yeah.
Even including the FBI.
The FBI?
Yeah. And this really raises an important question for all of us listening, right? If even sophisticated government entities, organizations with presumably significant security resources and expertise, are vulnerable to these attacks.
Right.
What does that mean for the average organization? For small businesses, for individual users like you and me?
Yeah, it makes you think. If they can get hit.
It really underscores the pervasive and, frankly, indiscriminate nature of this threat. It demonstrates that absolutely no one is truly safe without having robust, modern defenses in place.
So, given everything we've discussed, the sheer volume, the Gen AI paradox feeding attackers, the incredible rise and profitability of InfoStealers, it makes you wonder, how do we even begin to defend against such cunning adversaries? Let's maybe zoom in on a specific prime example of these advanced tactics in action, the Stargazers Ghost Network. You mentioned it targeted an enormous and seemingly innocent community.
Yes, the Stargazers Ghost Network is a really chilling, concrete example of just how sophisticated and organized these operations have become. It was identified as a malware distribution as a service, or DaaS operation.
Distribution as a service. So, like Moz, but focused just on spreading the malware.
Exactly. And this network comprised over 3,000 fake GitHub accounts, meticulously created, maintained, aged, all used to distribute info-stealing malware and malicious links, primarily through what looked like legitimate GitHub software repositories.
3,000 fake accounts, just for distribution. That's an incredible scale. And you mentioned it targeted a specific community. How did they manage to infiltrate such a broad user base, especially gamers?
Indeed, the attackers specifically zeroed in on the massive gaming community, with a particular focus on Minecraft users.
Minecraft. But that's huge. Millions of players, lots of kids.
Absolutely. Over 200 million monthly active players,
Yeah.
more than 300 million copies sold worldwide. It has a very vibrant modding community, right? Millions of players download and use mods to customize and enhance their gameplay. But this openness, this culture of downloading third-party code, makes it a prime target.
Right. People are used to downloading files for the game.
Exactly. So the attackers disguised their malware as popular cheat tools or game mods, using names like Oringo and Tanahi, things players might actually search for. They exploited the trust within the community and, let's be honest, the desire of some players for an edge or a shortcut. It's classic social engineering. Prey on what users are actively looking for.
Such a clever, cynical tactic. Gamers looking for an edge, downloading what they think is just a mod or a cheat. So how did the actual infection chain work? Was it just download and run, or was it more intricate than that?
Oh, it was definitely more intricate. A multi-stage infection chain specifically designed for stealth and persistence, trying to avoid both user detection and automated security tools.
Okay, walk us through it.
It typically begins when a victim manually downloads and installs a malicious JAR file, that's a Java archive file, which is cleverly disguised as a Minecraft mod.
So the user clicks it, thinking it's the mod.
Right. Upon launching the game with this fake mod installed, the mod executes the first stage. This is a Java-based loader. Now, this loader is particularly insidious because it requires the Minecraft runtime environment to even execute properly.
Ah, so it won't run in a typical security sandbox?
Often, no. Standard sandbox analysis tools might not have the specific Minecraft environment set up, so the malware just doesn't activate, evading detection. It's like needing a specific key, the game environment, to unlock the malicious payload, like a hidden door that only opens when you're in that specific room.
Very clever. So it's looking for the Minecraft environment to even run. What happens once that first stage is active then?
Okay, once that first loader confirms it's in the right environment and runs, it reaches out and downloads a second stage payload. This is another Java-based.
Stealer number one.
Right. This second stage is specifically responsible for extracting sensitive Minecraft-related data and also Discord token information from the victim's machine. Discord is hugely popular with gamers for communication.
Makes sense. But it doesn't stop there.
Nope. It then proceeds to download a third stage payload. This time it's a .NET-based stealer.
Stealer number 2. More comprehensive.
Much more comprehensive. This third stage is designed to cast a wider net, collect browser credentials, save passwords, cookies, cryptocurrency wallet files, VPN configuration data, system information, basically a whole lot more from the compromised system.
Wow.
And all of this stolen data from both stages is then typically sent off to a Discord webhook. Attackers often use Discord webhooks as a quick and easy command and control C2 channel for data exfiltration because it blends in with legitimate traffic.
Using Discord against its users, too. And any idea who is behind this?
The analysis of the malware code itself has indicated a likely link to a Russian-speaking threat actor or group. Various elements written in Russian were found embedded within the code samples recovered.
That's a deeply sophisticated chain of events, carefully designed stage by stage to avoid detection and maximize data theft. How did this ghost network, these 3,000 accounts, manage to maintain their perceived legitimacy and evade security measures for so long, especially on a platform like GitHub, which presumably has defenses?
Their modus operandi was really clever, built on 2 pillars: perceived legitimacy and that dynamic distribution as a service model. These ghost Stargazers, the fake accounts, would actively engage with the malicious GitHub repositories and their releases. They would star them, watch them, maybe even fork them.
Use like real users would.
Exactly. This simple act of engagement, multiplied by potentially hundreds or thousands of fake accounts, reinforced the perceived legitimacy for any unsuspecting users who stumbled upon them. It's a form of social proof. Look, this repo has lots of stars. It must be popular and trustworthy.
Manipulating the platform's own reputation system.
Precisely. And what's more, these fake accounts were designed to look more authentic. They maintained a wide variety of fake interests listed on their profiles, anything from Counter-Strike gaming to Instagram influencers to hacking tools to cracked antivirus software. This broad range of seemingly unrelated interests made them blend into the regular GitHub user base much better, making them harder to flag automatically as part of a single malicious network.
So they're creating this fake persona, this fake reputation, to build trust before delivering the payload. But how do they adapt? GitHub or other platforms must eventually detect and ban some of these malicious accounts or repositories, right? It seems like a constant cat and mouse game.
It absolutely is. And this is where their DaaS model really shines in terms of evasion and persistence. When a release account, that's the primary Git account, actually hosting the malicious file download, gets detected and banned by GitHub.
Which must happen eventually.
Right. The network operator doesn't just pack up and go home. Instead, they can swiftly create a new malicious download link, maybe hosted on a new account or a different platform entirely. And then, using their army of other controlled accounts, the commit accounts, they quickly update all of their feeder link repositories to point to the new malicious link.
So they just redirect the traffic instantly?
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
It bypasses GitHub's takedown of one specific node because the underlying network of accounts can quickly pivot and propagate the new malicious destination. It makes the ban of a single release account largely ineffective in stopping the overall distribution operation. It highlights their remarkable agility and resilience.
That's a truly resilient operational model for the attackers. Can you give us a specific example of one of their campaigns? Did they distribute other things besides the Minecraft stealers? Did they diversify their lures?
Oh, definitely. One notable campaign involved distributing a known info stealer called Atlantis Stealer. But the lure this time wasn't a game mod. It was disguised as a viewbot.
A viewbot. For what?
It was advertised as a Python-based tool that could supposedly increase views and engagement on social media platforms. So it appealed to a totally different audience, maybe aspiring influencers, marketers, anyone trying to boost their online presence.
Another group looking for a shortcut.
Exactly. And technically within this operation, they used obfuscated VB script code. That script executed PowerShell commands, which in turn ran remote code fetched from a compromised WordPress website to actually deliver the Atlantis Stealer payload. Very layered.
So definitely not just targeting gamers. They cast a wider net.
Absolutely. Other repositories controlled by the same network distributed the same kinds of short links, but used different phishing templates and lures, targeting various audiences. They offered things like supposed cracks for popular commercial software. CorelDRAW, Proton VPN, TeamViewer, and various crypto trading bots were also common lures. This diversification just massively increased their potential victim pool. It demonstrates a broad, opportunistic criminal enterprise.
So they cast a wide net across many different interests, trying to catch anyone looking for something free or an advantage. What about the scale of their network activity? Do we have a sense of how active these thousands of ghost accounts were? What kind of volume did they generate?
The scale is pretty impressive when you look at the data.
Yeah.
We've seen reports showing that more than 380 of these Stargazer Ghost accounts actively starred around 30 specific malicious repositories linked to the network. In total, across these repos, researchers observed nearly 2,000 engagement events, stars, forks, watches.
2,000 interactions just on those few repos.
Yeah. And there were noticeable surges in activity on specific dates. For instance, there were 621 events logged on May 27, 2024, and another 555 events on May 31, 2024.
What do those surges suggest?
They likely suggest either periods of concentrated campaign activity, maybe pushing a new lore or malware variant, or, as we speculated earlier about their resilience, it could be the Stargazer Goblin group actively fixing parts of their network after GitHub disrupted some of their operations. Rapidly updating links, restarring repos with new accounts to maintain that facade of legitimacy. It really highlights a highly organized and responsive operation.
Stargazer Goblin. That sounds like the name attributed to the mastermind or group behind all this. Is this a new group? And what do we know about the business side of their operation? It's clearly being run like a full-fledged, albeit illicit, enterprise.
Stargazer Goblin is indeed the moniker given to the threat actor or group believed to be behind this extensive distribution as a service network. Now, regarding the accounts they used, it appears to be a mix. Some of the 3,000-plus ghost accounts seem to have been created specifically by the operators themselves for this purpose.
Okay.
But critically, others seem to be compromised normal GitHub accounts belonging to legitimate users.
So they're hacking accounts too.
It seems so. This implies that legitimate GitHub credentials are quite valuable in underground marketplaces, as these compromised accounts can then be repurposed and folded into networks like Stargazer's. It also makes it really difficult to precisely estimate when Stargazer's Goblin truly began their malicious activities, because some accounts might have a long, legitimate history before being compromised.
Right, the trail gets muddy.
Exactly. However, based on analyzing some of the core accounts that seem purpose-built, researchers estimate that the network development likely began around August 2022, maybe operating on a smaller scale initially, building up capability. The first public advertisement for the Stargazers Ghost Network service was found on dark web forums on July 8, 2023.
So they went public, offering their distribution service to other criminals. What were they charging? What kind of profit were they potentially making from this whole elaborate setup?
The advertisement itself, which was interestingly written in both English and Russian, promoted their services quite openly. Well, openly on the dark web. They offered starring, following, forking, and watching GitHub accounts and repositories, along with fulfilling any other custom engagement actions requested by their clients.
Like a menu of illicit services.
Pretty much. The prices varied. For example, starring a client's malicious repository with 100 of their ghost accounts cost just $10.
$10 for 100 fake endorsements.
Yeah, translates to about 10 stars per US dollar. If a client wanted to use a more trusted-looking account, perhaps one with a longer history in aged repository, that would cost $2 per account. They even offered volume discounts for larger purchases over $500, really running it like a professional illicit business.
Unbelievable. And the profit.
The total estimated profit for Stargazer Goblin from this day's operation is believed to be quite significant, around $100,000.
$100,000 just from renting out fake GitHub accounts for engagement.
Yeah. This level of organization, the clear business model, and the substantial profit really underscore the urgent need for robust endpoint protection that can somehow counter such sophisticated, persistent, and financially motivated threat actors. It's a stark reminder that cybercrime isn't just random hacking. It's often big business.
Wow. This whole journey, from the evolving threat landscape, the rise of info stealers, culminating in something as organized and profitable as the Stargazers Ghost Network. It just hammers home the urgent need for truly robust endpoint protection. It makes you realize how many different angles we need to defend against.
It really does. The attack surface is huge, and the methods are constantly changing.
So, our material outlines 5 core principles for selecting the optimal security solution in this environment. What are these guiding lights? What should organizations really be looking for to secure their digital front lines?
That's the crucial question. And you're right, the need is absolutely paramount. Before we jump into the 5 principles themselves, it's probably worth just quickly reiterating those overarching challenges organizations are juggling, right?
Good idea. Context is key.
It's always this balancing act, achieving robust security without killing productivity. It's about managing increasingly complex security environments, often with tools from many different vendors that don't talk to each other well. And it's dealing with that persistent, very real cybersecurity skills gap.
That skills gap comes up constantly.
It does. On the complexity point, we see data showing 75% of organizations are actively trying to consolidate their security vendors. They're tired of juggling too many tools. And a significant 65% expect that consolidation will actually improve their overall risk posture. So the trend is clear. The old fragmented approach just isn't cutting it. It creates too many gaps, too much management overhead.
Makes sense. Less is more if it's the right less.
Exactly. And the skills gap is just stark reality. Stats suggest there are only about 85 qualified cybersecurity experts available for every 100 open cybersecurity positions. That shortfall directly impacts 71% of organizations, leading to heavier workloads, burnout among existing security teams. It's a major bottleneck.
Okay, so keeping those big challenges, complexity, productivity, skills gap in mind, let's get into those 5 principles for choosing the right endpoint security. What's number 1?
All right, principle number 1. Be GenAI ready with integrated data loss prevention, DLP.
GenAI ready. Okay, that ties back directly to what we discussed earlier.
Absolutely. And here's the core insight. Traditional security, especially traditional DLP, just can't keep up with the fluid, dynamic way GenAI processes information. Trying to use old keyword-based DLP against GenAI is like trying to catch mist with a fishing net. It just slips right through.
Why? What's the difference?
Conventional endpoint DLP relies heavily on matching static, predefined keywords, patterns, maybe regular expressions. But GenAI applications, they produce content dynamically. Their outputs are highly context-dependent. They can rephrase sensitive information, summarize it, embed it in seemingly innocuous text, ways that traditional tools scanning for exact matches will easily miss. You need a DLP that understands context, not just keywords.
So more intelligent DLP.
Exactly. It's about building intelligent guardrails that anticipate how employees might inadvertently expose sensitive data when interacting with these powerful tools. This isn't just a nice-to-have feature anymore. It's becoming a fundamental requirement for protecting intellectual property and confidential data in the age of AI.
So what capabilities should you look for specifically in a GenAI-ready solution?
An optimal solution must be able to actively prevent the submission of sensitive data into GenAI tools in the first place, where appropriate by policy. It needs to block risky actions like copy-pasting confidential information directly into chat prompts. It should offer policy-based scanning of file uploads to GenAI platforms, catching sensitive documents before they leave your control. Crucially, it must be able to safely discover and manage both the shadow GenAI tools.
The ones IT doesn't know about.
Right, the ones employees start using on their own because they're trying to be productive, often unaware of the risks. And also, the sanctioned, company-approved GenAI tools like ChatGPT Enterprise or Gemini. The security tool needs visibility and control over both. And ideally, it should prioritize these applications based on risk assessments. Not all GenAI tools are created equal in terms of security posture.
That visibility into shadow usage seems critical.
It is. As one industry analyst put it recently, CISOs are urgently looking for ways to securely manage GenAI use because employees are inadvertently exposing their companies to significant cyber risk through data loss and IP theft, simply by pasting confidential information into these apps without thinking.
That's a really critical first principle, given how pervasive GenAI is becoming. Okay, what's the second principle for building that robust defense against those sophisticated attacks, like the process injection and 0 days we talked about?
The second principle is ensure comprehensive protection against sophisticated attacks. This really means modern endpoint protection needs multiple layers of defense working together. And crucially, it must include strong behavioral analysis.
Beyond just known signatures.
Way beyond signatures. It's no longer enough to just detect known threats by matching file hashes. You absolutely need capabilities to prevent advanced threats. Things like zero-day exploits those attacks, targeting vulnerabilities before a patch even exists. Fileless malware that runs only in memory, leaving no trace on the disk for traditional scanners to find. Sophisticated impersonation attempts, targeted phishing.
So what does that look like in terms of features?
This comprehensive approach means the solution should offer a strong foundational anti-malware, of course. but also effective anti-exploit capabilities designed to prevent the techniques vulnerabilities use, even if the specific vulnerability is new. Robust port protection to control what can connect to your devices. Strong browser protection with URL filtering and safe search capabilities to block access to malicious or compromised websites. And even things like protection against corporate password reuse, helping enforce better security hygiene among users.
And AI plays a role here too.
Definitely. Beyond those specific features, the solution really should incorporate AI-driven engines. These engines should be capable of correlating data and signals from multiple areas, looking at network traffic patterns, system process behavior, user activity logs, file movements altogether. By correlating these diverse data points, the AI can often detect and mitigate potential threats, even if they're brand new, highly evasive, or using those legitimate tools to hide.
Can you give us another concrete example? How does this comprehensive, multi-layered protection actually play out against a real-world threat, maybe showing its effectiveness?
Sure. A really powerful recent example was the critical zero-day vulnerability found in the WebP image format. It was identified as CVE 2023-5129, also tracked as 428.63.
WebP, that's used everywhere on the web for images, right?
Exactly. It's widely used for efficient image compression. This was a critical vulnerability, and worse, it was being actively exploited in the wild before a patch was widely available. That's the definition of a zero-day.
How did the attack work?
Attackers found they could craft malicious WebP images. If they could get a victim to simply view or interact with that image, maybe embedded in a web page, maybe send it a chat message, it could potentially grant the attacker unauthorized access to the system, allowing them to steal sensitive data or take further control. Imagine a seemingly harmless picture delivering a full system compromise.
Just viewing an image, that's terrifying.
It is. So mitigating this risk effectively, especially in that zero-day window before the patch, required comprehensive and proactive endpoint protection. Security teams needed tools that could help them immediately identify which systems were potentially vulnerable, even before the official patch was deployed, and then enable swift patching once it was available.
So it's not just about blocking the image file itself.
Right. It's about having those multiple layers. Maybe the anti-exploit layer could detect the behavior of the code triggered by the image, like unexpected process injection or memory manipulation, even if the image file itself wasn't yet flagged as definitively malicious by traditional signatures. Without that multi-layered, proactive defense that includes behavioral analysis, a simple image could lead to a catastrophic breach.
That's a stark reminder of how subtle these threats can be and how crucial those overlapping layers of detection are. Okay, what about the third principle? This one tackles that constant tension. How do organizations ensure robust security without grinding productivity to a halt? That's always a major concern for businesses.
It absolutely is. And that brings us to principle number 3, ensuring robust security without compromising productivity and efficiency. This really breaks down into 2 key areas. First, proactive vulnerability management. Second, embracing simplicity and automation.
Okay, let's start with vulnerability management. Why is that so critical for productivity?
Well, think about the scale of the problem. In 2023 alone, we saw the highest annual number of new CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exposures ever recorded. Over 29,000 new ones.
29,000 new potential holes.
Yep. And the pace isn't slowing. In 2024, estimates suggest a staggering 108 new vulnerabilities were being uncovered every single day. Each one of those is a potential entry point for attackers, a potential cause of massive damage and disruption. You can't just ignore them, but you also can't let the patching process paralyze the business.
So what capabilities does an effective solution need here?
An effective endpoint solution must offer proactive vulnerability detection. That means continuous scanning and risk assessment, identifying weaknesses before attackers find and exploit them. It needs to provide full visibility into all endpoint vulnerabilities across the organization, and also insight into related security posture issues, like risky data movements. Crucially, it must help prioritize those vulnerabilities.
Prioritize? How? There are so many.
Based on calculated risk scores, maybe considering the user profile, are they an admin? The specific application context, is it internet-facing? This allows security teams to focus their limited time and resources on the most critical threats first, instead of getting buried trying to patch every single low-risk vulnerability immediately. It should also clearly identify which specific applications and machines are the most vulnerable, allowing for targeted and efficient remediation efforts.
That makes sense. Triage is essential with that kind of volume. 108 new ones a day is just mind-boggling. So how does the second part, simplicity and automation, tie into this? How does that help manage the scale and keep things running smoothly?
Simplicity and automation are absolutely vital here. They're key to ensuring both productivity and security effectiveness, especially given the scale of threats and vulnerabilities and that skills gap we mentioned. The endpoint solution itself needs to be easy to deploy, intuitive to manage day-to-day, and offer extensive automation capabilities
Got it.
to minimize the burden on those already stretched security teams and to dramatically reduce response times. When a critical threat is detected, you want automated actions kicking in immediately, not waiting for a human analyst to log in and click buttons.
So what kind of features enable this?
Look for things like integrated AI co-pilots. These can assist security operations personnel by automating routine investigation tasks, summarizing alerts, providing intelligent insights, basically acting as a force multiplier. The solution should have flexible rules for automatic policy enforcement, meaning security policies can adapt to changing conditions or new threats without constant manual tweaking. Ideally, things like one-click remediation for common configuration weaknesses or vulnerabilities.
Making fixes easy.
Exactly. Automation should also extend to compliance reporting for data regulations, ensuring security policies align with legal requirements automatically. And underpinning all this should be a single, unified dashboard, providing full visibility into the security status and risk score of all devices, giving you that holistic view. Easy deployment options on-premise, cloud, hybrid, and seamless. API-based integration capabilities are also crucial, allowing the endpoint tool to share data and orchestrate responses with the rest of your security ecosystem.
Connecting the dots.
Precisely. The World Economic Forum recently highlighted this, noting that automation and machine learning are having a profound and growing influence on cybersecurity, exactly because they help organizations tackle this overwhelming scale and dramatically improve response times. It's about using smart technology to fight smart threats efficiently.
Okay, leveraging smart tech for efficiency makes a lot of sense. Now, what's the fourth principle? How do we bring all these different protection layers and capabilities together effectively?
The fourth principle is all about a consolidated approach. To really combat that complexity issue, we talked about the headache of managing dozens of different security tools from different vendors. The optimal endpoint security solution should ideally combine multiple essential security functions into a single agent, managed from a single platform.
Consolidating tools. What kind of functions are we talking about integrating?
We're talking about bringing together capabilities like your core endpoint protection platform, or EPP. That's your foundational shield, providing things like basic anti-malware, firewall, device control, and prevention technologies.
Okay, the basics.
Then integrating endpoint detection and response, or EDR. EDR is crucial for spotting and stopping threats that might have slipped past those initial EPP defenses. It does this by continuously monitoring endpoint activity, detecting suspicious behaviors, and providing tools for incident investigation and response.
Finding the ones that get through.
Right. And then ideally, taking it even further by integrating extended detection and response, or XDR, capabilities. XDR expands beyond just the endpoint. It pulls in telemetry and security data from across your entire IT environment, network devices, cloud workloads, email systems, identity providers, and correlates it all together for an even more holistic view of potential threats that might span multiple systems.
Seeing the bigger picture attack.
Exactly. So the goal here is to have all these powerful capabilities, EPP, EDR, maybe even elements of XDR, unified into a single software agent running on the endpoint, and all managed from a single console or platform.
What are the main advantages of doing that?
The advantages are significant. First, it drastically simplifies management for security teams. One agent to deploy an update, one console to monitor and configure. Second, it usually reduces costs by eliminating redundant tools, licenses, and the associated maintenance overhead. And third, and perhaps most importantly, it provides a much more cohesive and effective security posture. You get a unified view of risk across all your assets, unified management policies, fewer security silos, fewer blind spots, and much better threat correlation because all the data is in one place. As one security trend analysis put it, a consolidation strategy aims to achieve an anchor set of core safeguards within a single unified platform to improve risk posture while also achieving resource and cost optimization. It's really about getting more effective security through less complexity.
That makes perfect sense. Fewer things to manage, fewer gaps between tools, better overall visibility. Sounds like a much more efficient model. Okay, so that brings us to the fifth and final principle. What's the critical human element or maybe support factor that many organizations might overlook when choosing a solution?
The fifth and final principle is ensuring you have adequate managed services support. This directly addresses that severe and ongoing cybersecurity skills shortage we keep mentioning.
Right, the 85 experts for every 100 jobs problem.
Exactly. Given that reality where organizations struggle to hire and retain enough qualified cybersecurity professionals, leading to overworked teams and potential burnout, having access to managed security services becomes critical for many organizations to maintain robust endpoint protection effectively. It's about augmenting your team.
So what kind of services should you look for?
You should look for vendors that offer expert security management. This could include 247 monitoring and threat response from their specialized Security Operations Center, SOC specialists, who essentially act as an extension of your own internal team, watching your endpoints around the clock.
Eyes on glass, 204/7.
Right. They should also offer things like on-demand incident handling services, providing expert assistance to contain and remediate a breach if the worst happens, helping minimize damage and restore operations quickly. Look for expert assistance with the initial deployment, configuration, and ongoing policy tuning and investigation, ensuring your security tools are actually set up optimally for your specific environment. And they should provide comprehensive investigation and analysis of cyber incidents and attacks after the fact, helping you understand the root cause, the impact, and how to strengthen defenses to prevent recurrence.
So basically, expert help on demand or continuously.
Precisely. This managed support layer effectively bridges those critical internal skill gaps. It allows organizations, especially small to medium-sized businesses or those with limited in-house cybersecurity resources, to access top-tier expertise and advanced security capabilities without having to bear the full cost and challenge of hiring and retaining highly specialized and often very expensive internal staff. As a recent CompTIA report stated, the cybersecurity skill gap is now widely considered the top challenge organizations face when trying to pursue their cybersecurity initiatives. Managed services are becoming a vital part of the solution for many.
Wow, what an incredible deep dive. We've covered so much ground today, from the dizzying pace of AI-driven threats and sophisticated attackers to the stealthy operations like the Stargazers Ghost Network exploiting trust. It's just crystal clear that our digital front lines are constantly shifting under our feet.
It never stands still, does it?
Not for a second. But it's also equally clear from exploring these principles that the defense strategies, the solutions, they're evolving just as rapidly. While the threats are definitely growing in sophistication, becoming harder to detect, more damaging to business operations. I think you mentioned the average cost of a data breach is now something like $4.88 million.
That's the latest figure, yes. A staggering cost.
Right. So while the threat side is scary, the strategies and tools to counter them are also advancing. It really is this complex, ongoing balance of innovation on both sides, constant vigilance, and, crucially, deploying the right tools and strategies to protect our digital lives and businesses.
Indeed. And just to summarize those key takeaways based on the principles, with the vast majority of attacks, maybe 9 out of 10, originating from the endpoint, organizations absolutely must prioritize mitigating this risk. They need to prevent data leakage, especially with Gen AI, and avert those potentially catastrophic associated damages and cost. The optimal solution, as we've discussed, really needs to encompass several key things working together.
Let's recap them quickly.
First, it needs to be Gen AI ready, incorporating AI power protection itself. But critically, with that robust, context-aware data loss prevention, DLP, to address the emerging AI risks. Second, comprehensive defenses against sophisticated attacks looking beyond signatures to tackle 0 days, fileless malware, process injection. Third, strong, proactive vulnerability management to shrink the attack surface efficiently. Fourth, a focus on simplicity and automation to boost efficiency and reduce the burden on security teams. Fifth, that consolidated approach, unifying EPP, EDR, maybe XDR into a single platform for better visibility and less complexity. And finally, ensuring access to critical managed services support to bridge those inevitable skill gaps and provide expert oversight. It's really about building a holistic, adaptive defense that understands and anticipates the evolving nature of the threat.
A truly layered and intelligent approach.
Exactly. And maybe if we connect this to the bigger picture looking forward, as technology continues its relentless acceleration, as our digital footprint expands even further into new realms, it raises a really important question for us all to ponder. What new forms of digital identity, what new types of sensitive data will become the next prime target for these increasingly organized, financially motivated threat actors? And how will that inevitably reshape the landscape of protection for all of us in the years to come?
That is a powerful thought to leave everyone with. What's the next frontier for the attackers, and how do we get ahead of it? Something definitely for you, our listeners, to consider as you navigate your own digital world. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into endpoint security today. We really hope you feel more informed, maybe a little more prepared to face these evolving challenges head on. And a final thank you to our sponsor, Stonefly, for making this deep dive possible. As a leader in enterprise storage, backup, and disaster recovery, they're providing those essential AI storage and cloud solutions that businesses need today. For secure, ransomware-proof storage options, including air-gapped and immutable storage, remember you can reach out to them directly at sales@stonefly.com to schedule a demo. That's SALES at stonefly.com.
Definitely worth checking out if data security is top of mind.
Absolutely. Well, that's all for today's deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and please stay secure.